It might be tempting to just skip adding your customers in QuickBooks Online, but this simple process can actually tell you a lot of information. It's going to play into whether or not the sales tax for each customer is correctly calculated. It's going to give all of the invoices and transactions that happen with that particular customer a good place to land so that you can review them quickly and easily in the future. And finally, it can actually tell you whether or not working with a specific customer is profitable to you. So with all that in mind, let's talk about how to add customer information in QuickBooks Online and also how to edit it so that you can ensure you always have the most up-to-date information in the customer's profile. So one way that you might discover that you have a customer that you need to add is if you have a transaction in the bank feed and do not have a customer associated with it. Now, I do want to show you, you absolutely can just go ahead and add a customer right in your bank feed by selecting Add New, okay? Now that is going to pop out a side window that is going to look identical to what you would see if you were adding the customer from the Customer Hub, okay? But I wanted to show you this right here and just quickly go through it before we go in that way. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is that if you're trying to get your data entry done so that you can move on and reconcile your account, you may very well opt to just add a shell of information, right? You might put in the customer name or company name, and that's it, okay? And actually, that's what I'm going to go ahead and do here for this particular customer. So this is Blue Oak Property Services. They are a brand new customer to me. So I'm going to put in the business name of Blue Oak Property Services LLC. And it's not that one, although this is also a good example of the QuickBooks Business Network coming up and offering a suggestion. So my Blue Oak Property Services LLC is actually located in Sacramento. And remember, all of this is fictional, so we're just going to keep on moving. So I have Blue Oak Property Services LLC, and it automatically puts that over to the customer display name. Okay. Now, for the purposes of adding this transaction, I could go ahead and just leave this as is and go in and edit the customer profile at a later time to add all of the rest of the information. So I will actually go ahead and do that right here. And you'll see once I hit save, it's going to fill in Blue Oak Property Services as the customer here. Now I can go ahead and put in product or service and add this transaction. Now, here is why I do recommend always having a customer associated with whatever deposit you're putting into your books. Let's go ahead and head over to our customer hub so we can see what's happening with that transaction. So from this left-hand navigation menu here, I can collapse and expand any of these buckets. So by collapsing accounting, Customer Hub came up a little bit higher to the top, and I want you to be able to see all of the options that are available there. So we have all of this in Customer Hub. QuickBooks changed it recently, largely, I think at least, because they are working in concert with MailChimp. Intuit, which also owns QuickBooks, did purchase MailChimp. And so they were trying to basically create a customer funnel that could work with MailChimp to basically bring people into your business and into your ecosystem, okay? So in order to edit a customer that I already have in here, I would go Customer Hub and then Customers and Leads. Now, if you've ever been in either your vendor or customer center before, this is going to look very familiar. It's a very standard setup here. Now, we see Blue Oak Property Services is right here. And if I wanted to go in there, I could just click and head on into their customer profile. But first, I wanted to show you, if I had not added them in the bank feed, I could add them here by selecting New Customer and entering their information. Additionally, if they happened to be a customer that would fall farther down in the alphabetical order, I could search for them by starting to type in their name, and then it would whittle it down to just the companies with that information in play. So in order to edit this customer profile, I would want to click on Blue Oak Property Services right here. And that is going to open up their customer profile. Okay, so as you can see, one of the reasons that it actually is important to have a customer associated with a deposit transaction in QuickBooks is we can see right here that I have that transaction that I just recorded showing up in their customer profile. If I hadn't associated a customer profile with that transaction, I could still go find it in my bank register, but it wouldn't show up under their profile, meaning that if they called me to find out about their past payments or about whether or not they had any invoices that were overdue, my information here might not be complete and correct, which I very much want to have up to date. I want to know exactly whether or not a customer owes me and how much they owe me. Okay, so in order to edit the information, because we really did just put in their name, we didn't put in any additional data there, I could click edit right here. And you can see that pops out that same window that we were dealing with when we were adding the customer in the bank feed. Okay, so this is where I would go to add or edit any information that I wanted to about that customer. Now, if I had entered information here and discovered later that it was wrong, let's say that I transposed a number in their zip code or something to that effect, I could absolutely come in here and immediately edit that. And you can see right here, we have a whole bunch of different cards at the top of this screen. And these cards correspond to these sections of the customer profile, okay? And I can expand and collapse these just as I can the menu on the left-hand side over here, okay? So we can see each of these matches up with a card. So if I want to navigate to, say, the addresses card, I can click on this one right here, and that's going to expand addresses for me. Okay. Now I do have their new customer sheet on another screen over here. One thing I would recommend to you as a business owner is if you are going to be taking on new customers, whether you do that via a form on your website or whether or not you just take their information over the phone, I highly recommend having a form that you follow to ensure that you are getting the correct information every single time, okay? If you are shipping physical product and if you are using QuickBooks to invoice customers, it's really important that you have all that information in there so that you can create a packing slip, create an invoice, get this information sent out into the world complete and correctly. On top of that, if you are using QuickBooks to calculate sales tax, it's going to be really important that you have billing and shipping addresses in here correctly so that all of that can take place for you automatically. So I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of the information in here. Now I have the company name, but I didn't put in a contact name, and I do actually have a contact name. So I'm going to put this in here. Now, it is entirely possible that whoever the contact name is might not be the business owner, but if they are, sometimes they prefer to have checks written to them or refunds written to them, okay? So that's where you might want to play with this customer display name, okay? You might know this particular customer as Natalie Brooks, and so it's kind of irrelevant what her company name is, right? Conversely, maybe Natalie is just an employee and Blue Oak Property Services is honestly the customer. So maybe you want to keep the company name displayed because it's possible that your contact at the company might change in the future. Okay, I am going to leave this as Blue Oak Property Services under the assumption basically that Natalie is an employee of the company and may or may not be the person I end up dealing with on an ongoing basis. Now we have some additional information here. Okay, so I do have an email, which I'm going to go ahead and copy in. Now you can see here we do have the option to add CC and BCC emails to the customer profile, okay? I have this and I use this for my own business if I have multiple partners who want to see my invoices when they come in each month. I actually do have one company that I work for that's a husband-wife team, and the husband is the primary on their QuickBooks account, so his email comes up first, but the wife is the one who is working in the office handling the back end of things, and so she wants the invoices to be emailed to her as well. So you can use the primary email and CC, BCC emails to achieve that. okay? Now, if you have the website information and want to put that in, that's great. It is by no means required, but I do recommend putting in an address if you have one available, and I actually do. So I'm going to go ahead and enter that. All right, and then right here is where you can see if the shipping address was going to be different than the billing address, you could deselect this right here, and that would allow you to actually go ahead and enter a different shipping address. Okay, that doesn't apply to this particular client, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that one alone. All right, so this is all the information that I happen to need for this particular client. You can see here, there is a lot more information. So for example, you can add notes and attachments. So let's say that you had an engagement letter with a client and you wanted to make sure that you had that at your fingertips in their customer profile at all times. You could add that as an attachment here. Let's also say that you have set up specific payment terms with them. Okay, maybe you have default payment terms in your business, but maybe you decided to extend them different terms. You could enter that information here. Okay, another thing is if they are tax exempt. Okay, if they are, you would want to put that in here so that you're not accruing tax on any of their purchases. Okay. And finally, you can add additional custom fields. This is not necessarily something that you would do with each and every customer, but depending on the depth of information that you want here, you absolutely do have the option to add additional fields. All right. And then finally, you can also see down here, you could say whether or not they were referred by somebody, whether or not somebody had sent them your way. So if you are doing referral bonuses or anything like that, that's a way to help track this information. Okay. And again, all of these little cards right here correspond to buttons at the top. So you can quickly and easily navigate to each one. Let's say I wanted to go all the way back up to the top where the initial contact information was. I can just click here and that's going to take me all the way back up to where name and contact is. So the final thing that I want to put in here is that you can actually assign any customer as a sub-customer of an existing customer. And you might want to do this if, for example, you have a company that you work with and you ship product to them and it's one parent company, but multiple locations, right? That would allow you to assign a shipping address to each individual location that you send product to, as well as having a name or contact associated with that individual location. Okay, that might make your life a little bit easier. And you do always have the option of billing each customer individually or billing a parent customer for everything. So depending on their business structure, that can be really helpful as well. Sub-customers end up working very much like subcategories on your chart of accounts, where it can all be rolled up into one, or you can make sure that it is very granular and detailed down below. Okay. So let's go ahead and hit save here. And now what I want to do is I want to actually show you the reports that you could go and generate to find out whether or not you are profitable with a specific customer. So if we go over here to reports and then standard reports, and then if we just go right to this business overview right here, we can see we have a profit and loss by customer. So basically, running a profit and loss by customer will tell me how much each customer has paid me throughout the year so far. Okay. Now, for a service-based business like bookkeeping, you might not have a lot of costs that are associated with each individual client. So a profit and loss, you might not see a lot of expenses being recognized with each individual customer, right? But it is still worth seeing and noting who you are earning a substantial amount of money from versus who might be paying you a very small amount. Now we can see here there is a customer for bank, right, which would be the interest income that I have earned. That is irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. But we can see whether our customers are paying us for certain services, or, in this case, we have bookkeeping services or training materials. So you can see how much a customer has paid for each different income bucket that you have on the file. And if there are any cost of goods sold associated with any of the products that you have sold to them, that shows up as well. So you get an idea of your profit by customer, even if the admin and overhead isn't in here. Now, when you're looking at certain types of reporting, if you're a construction company and you're in here doing job costing, you're going to see a lot more data showing up under each one of these customers, okay? A service-based business that has admin and overhead but isn't necessarily allocating any of it to each individual customer isn't going to see that same granular detail of reporting. They're just going to see overall expenses that are happening, right? But if you have 5 different construction clients and you're doing construction for each one of them, you have active projects for each one of them, and you're assigning your labor and your cost of goods sold and all of your operating expenses and overhead accordingly, then you're going to get a really good picture of how profitable a specific client or job is. So again, this is where it could be really tempting to just go ahead and assign an income bucket to transactions as they're coming through on your bank feed. But if you do that, you're missing out on some of this back end reporting that is available. And the last thing, again, if you are a product-based business, don't forget that having those addresses in there is really important for calculating sales tax. And you can actually have QuickBooks set up to calculate the sales tax that needs to be collected when you're shipping product to specific locations. All right, thank you so much for watching. I'm Holly from Accrual, Mistress Bookkeeping and Consulting. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave those in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.